Cornelius, wir sind in Olten.
Yes, IPFO.
IPFO, oder wie sie es da so gerne sagen, am IPFO.
Am IPFO. Das International Photo Festival Olten, 5. Ausgabe.
Genau, und es ist sehr international. Es hat wieder unglaublich viele coole Ausstellungen, unglaublich viele coole Stars da, kann man so sagen, oder? Stars.
Ja, man kann sagen, es ist so Shining. Oberhalb Olten gibt es ein gewisses glamouröses Leuchten mittlerweile.
Genau, und einer davon ist der Platon.
Mhm.
Platon ist, es klingt jetzt wie ein griechischer Gott, ist es aber nicht.
Aber er hat zumindest griechische Wurzeln.
Auf immerhin nicht griechische Wurzeln, genau. Platon ist einer der weltbekanntesten Portraitfotografen, würde ich jetzt so unterschreiben.
Mhm. Ja, das unterschreibe ich definitiv.
Und wir dürfen mit ihm am IPFO ein Gespräch führen.
Ein vor allem extrem interessantes Gespräch. Ihr werdet nachher hören, das ist schwierig, ihn auf kurze Antworten zu nageln, aber seine Sicht auf die Welt und seine Sicht auf Fotografie ist wirklich extrem faszinierend und ich glaube, darum ist es wichtig, dass man ihn auch ausführen lässt.
Ja, du musst ihm den Platz geben, um das zu erklären. Also es ist sehr bedachte Wörter. Also er hat sehr eine klare Ansicht, aber er kann das auch sehr gut überbringen. Also er ist nicht nur... Er ist wirklich dort der Künstler, aber er kann das sehr, sehr gut und bringt das auch über und bringt das meiner Meinung nach auch in seinem Bildstil natürlich dann am Schluss über.
Was eigentlich fast das Spannendste daran ist, wie reduziert er beim Fotografieren unterwegs ist. Also sich selber in dem Sinn bewusst limitiert mit der Anzahl Bilder in einem Sitting versus wie ausschweifend er im Gespräch darüber redet. Aber ja, also es ist wirklich, muss ich sagen, ist eine Ehre, dass wir mit jemandem wie ihm jetzt hier an diesem Festival mal eine Podcast-Folge aufzeichnen.
Sehr eine grosse Ehre. Soll ich noch geschwind ein bisschen vorlesen, was er so ein bisschen...
Gib doch unseren Hörern noch schnell ein paar Eckpunkte.
Er wird sich selber noch kurz vorstellen, wird das hören, aber ich gebe jetzt einfach noch ein paar weitere Eckpunkte. Er ist sehr international aufgewachsen, er ist Sohn von einer Engländerin und von einem Griech. Er ist auch in Griechenland aufgewachsen und hat nachher in London die Ausbildung gemacht. Im Central St. Martins, im Royal College of Art, hat er seinen Master abgeschlossen. Habe ich recht in Erinnerung, genau. Und er ist bekannt für ikonische Porträts, für das Time Magazine von Präsidenten, Künstlern, Aktivisten, Kreti und Pleti. Und wie du es schon erwähnt hast, sehr typisch für ihn ist sehr sein minimalistischer Stil. Er fotografiert schon seit er angefangen hat, seine Porträts zu machen, fotografiert er mit dem gleichen Background, mit dem gleichen Licht, mit der fast gleichen Kamera, immer etwa der gleiche Winkel, sehr reduziert. Der hat das einfach wirklich perfektioniert und durchgezogen. Aber es macht eben genau seine Art und seine Bilder aus. Und er ist auch noch sehr ein starker Aktivist für Menschenrechte und Menschenwürde. Es ist ihm ein riesen Anliegen, auch wenn er die grössten Politiker und weiss ich nicht was fotografiert, ist er doch immer noch sehr auf Menschenrechte eingespielt auf das Ganze und hat durch das auch noch den People's Portfolio gegründet. Das ist seine eigene Non-Profit Organisation.
Ja, genau. NPO.
NPO. Mit IPFO und allem drum und dran kann man schnell mal das Durcheinander bekommen. Und er ist, wie schon erwähnt, am IPFO zu Olten und wir dürfen mit ihm reden. Und ich würde sagen, wir steigen nachher gerade ein in das Gespräch.
Ja.
Wir wünschen euch sehr, sehr viel Spass damit. Es ist auf Englisch. Wir haben uns das Beste gegeben. Er war zufrieden mit unserem Englisch. Von dem her viel Spass und damit herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe von «Im Bild», der ziemlich fotografische Podcast mit
Cornelius Fischer
und mir, Über.
I would say, Platon, that we start also with a quick introduction that you introduce yourself. I mean, your name is really, really famous, and most of the professional photographers will know who is now speaking to them. But our podcast is also for amateurs and hobby photographers, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people listening to our podcast who actually don't have your name or don't know what you actually do. So can you just quickly tell them what you do and what is your main interest in photography?
My name is Platon. I'm a photographer. I'm a storyteller. And my job is to connect with people who shape the times we're living in. Some of them have acquired immense power, and some of them have been robbed of all their power. And my job is to tune into their frequencies, try to find out what their character is, try to connect with their spirit, their moral compass, if they have one. We all have one. And try to document that on film. And then my pictures become a provocation for respectful debate in society. And I think to be a cultural provocateur is a very, very important thing right now. So I take that very seriously. I'm dedicated to that. And I think the most beautiful thing is when I see that one of my pictures has stimulated a big debate in society. And I think that's what I'm really dedicated to. It's a great privilege to have done that.
For sure. So I think that is really some of the central core of what photography actually is. There's something which actually is really interesting. You have a British mother, a Greek father. You're growing up in Greece, but you studied in London. So you have a really big mixture of different cultures as your background. Is there something where you say all this cultural mix you bring into photography which leads you in a certain direction, or where it helps you to read people or politicians or people of power?
That's a good question. You know, someone once described me as a citizen of the world because I had been through so many different cultural experiences. I think it's really important to be a good guest. And all immigrants are guests. You know, they're not on their home ground. They're not surrounded by their natural culture. The sort of rituals through the day seem alien to them. And it creates a constant sense of humility. And I think as a photographer, that's very, very important. It kills cultural arrogance. And you are always able to put aside the things that perhaps make you feel comfortable and confident, and to appreciate other ways of living, seeing, thinking. That makes me a better photographer because I was an immigrant. And I know what it is to have been judged. When I was brought up in a Greek village when I was a young child. And I remember the day we got electricity in the village. And I remember the day we got our first phone line in the post office in the village. So I have seen a real change through history of technology, from the first phone line to spending time with all our tech titans who have shaped the world in the last 20, 30 years. But the values in a little Greek village helped shape my purpose in life. Respect for our elders. An old person is not to be cast aside. The old person in the family is the matriarch or patriarch. They've lived the highs and lows that we all think we're experiencing now. They know all that. They've been through that. And they know stuff that we need to know. So to put them in a corner or in a home, or shut them away from society, or devalue them the way we devalue women in our society, as soon as they start to become of a certain age, they're no longer valued in Hollywood or in the media in the same way that they were when they're in their early 20s, seems to go against the natural value system of what it is to be alive. Because the longer you've lived, the more you know. And the more perspective you have. And if you call it wisdom, the more wisdom you have from trial and error alone. So in this little village, the old ladies, it's not important whether they've got lines on their face. It's what they know that counts, and their compassion and their strength and their courage to get their family through highs and lows. So I grew up with that. But then I went to London when I was about 8 years old because my father, we moved back to the UK. And when I arrived in the UK in the mid-70s, I wasn't just a foreigner, I was a bloody foreigner. It was a different time in London, and I had a heavy Greek accent. And suddenly all the warmth of a Greek Mediterranean culture where children are valued, old people are valued, suddenly, I mean, you know, the British culture is very different. And the humor is very different. So it was a huge adjustment. And at first I felt terribly isolated and lonely. On top of that, I'm extremely dyslexic. So I'm put in a school, I felt an idiot. I couldn't do any of the things that all the other kids could do. So I started slipping behind and becoming isolated. And I'm really glad I went through that, because I know what it is to feel alone. I know what it is to be in a strange place and to try and find your feet and to try and adjust your own sense of humanity to the environment you're in. And that is really important to do, because that's survival to my masters. And so I got the best training. So I feel like culturally I got the best from London, and spiritually I got the best from the Mediterranean simple value of life. And you put those two things together, I've got the warmth of personality and confidence in the human condition from the Greek village. But when I'm in the corridors of power, I have to switch to British English diplomacy, navigation, being respectful, listening to people, observing, and the art of gentle persuasion and negotiation. No one does that better than the British. So I got lucky, and I figured out, okay, wherever I am, there's a good side and a bad side. And it's pretty even in the end. Now I live in America, and I've been there for nearly 30 years. My kids are American. Well, they're kind of culturally mixed up, but they were born in America. And Americans think straight. You know, they don't add flowery language. They talk straight. Their phraseology is straight. Their business acumen is straight. That's why they're so good at business. You know, doing business in Europe is much more complicated. You never get paid when you're supposed to be paid. The job changes, the brief changes. Everything is a bit more shifty. Perhaps it's more cool. Perhaps it's more edgy. Perhaps it's more subtle. But the Americans don't think like that. They think straight. They tell you how it is. You know, here's the job. You better deliver. If you don't deliver, you're going home. And that's the spirit. But that's why there's this idea of the American dream, that if you are prepared to work more than anybody else and commit 150% and deliver and match all expectations, you will get another gig. And so it moves. And I remember when I went to America, within 2 months, I was in the White House working with Bill Clinton. And I arrived
really quickly, actually.
Yeah, and I arrived with just a suitcase and a camera bag. I had no real energy behind me at that time. So, you know, there's a magic that comes from every culture you go to in the world. And I've traveled the world. There's only a few countries I haven't really been to, a few really great ones I really would love to go to. So there's still nice things to achieve ahead of me. But everywhere I go, there's going to be a bad side and a good side. That's how the human condition works.
That's really interesting. I'm also an immigrant here in Switzerland, so I actually come from the eastern part of Germany. So I was born in the eastern German part, 1984. and immigrated to Switzerland in, I think, 1809. So that's before the wall actually was broken down. So I still remember this time as a kid and special times in history as a kid. And now when you look on your picture of Vladimir Putin, that's actually now my point to come to Vladimir Putin. You took this portrait in 2007. It was the cover of the Time magazine, and you won the World Press Award with this picture. And now, 20, or actually more than close to 20 years later, did your view on this picture changed, or do you have still the same kind of view on this picture? And maybe a little bit more general, do you think that a simple portrait picture, let's say a really strong portrait picture like the one of Vladimir Putin, can really change or set something in motion? So this is something, or how can I describe this? You see, that's now when we talk in English.
You're doing great. I'm very impressed.
Thanks. So do you think that a simple portrait can move something in a society, and this is something that drives you to take these pictures?
Well, first, I just want to say, before answering your question, I've learned how politicians never answer questions. So I've been around them long enough to know, oh, yeah, that's interesting. I'll try that. You were born in 1984.
Yes, right.
I was born in 1968. They're two very big years.
Yeah, that's true.
1984 has a lot of symbolism about how how powerful people manipulate our society and our personal freedom. And 1968 is the year of the people. It's like filled with demonstrations and revolutions. So it's interesting for me, they're two pivotal, they're just numbers, but they represent something that happens to people. I fundamentally believe in people power. And I've seen great organizations built on authority try to manipulate or even crush people power. And I've seen people that seem to be invincible crumble, fall. Happens all the time. And I've seen them at peak power where it's so scary and then and intimidating and humbling. And then 2 years later, it's all over for them. If you look at someone like Gaddafi, when I photographed Gaddafi, he was at his peak power. And it wasn't that long after my picture that he was brutally killed, crawling out of a concrete tunnel on the run. I think he was even shot by his own gun made of gold. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true. And there was other things that they did to him as well, pretty very violent things. Now, when I was with him, no one would ever believe that this is how it's going to end for him. He was surrounded by 15 female bodyguards dressed head to foot in military clothing. I mean, it was like a scene from Star Wars. So I've seen, and that's just one example of what happens to power when it's abused and the volatility of society. In the end, the revolution bangs on the gates. It does. So I find that very, very interesting. Power is something, I've always been immune to power. I have a healthy disregard for it. And I never would have imagined that that would be a great qualification for a career, being surrounded by power. Because when I'm presented to a president, I just see them as a person. I have to be able to take the kind of picture I take. If I see them as the ultimate representation of all that authority, of course, power is built to make the people feel worth less, so that the person in power is elevated to seem that they are worth more. That's actually what power is. But Martin Luther King always said, beware of the illusion of supremacy. And I always thought that's really interesting because supremacy is an illusion. We're all the same. We're all skin and bones. And we all have different jobs. And some of us really abuse those positions on a small scale or a really, really big scale. Some of us get away with it, and some of us don't. So I'm really interested in this idea of what power really is. And when I'm with someone, they know that I am immune. My subjects know it because it's evident in my body language. I'm very respectful. I'm not disrespectful to anyone, but I'm just human with them. And the great irony is that they find that freeing and liberating. At last, they can be authentic with someone and not perpetuate this ridiculous game that they started, that they are bigger, stronger, better than an ordinary person, in quotes. So generally speaking, that allows me to have these extraordinary human experiences with my subjects. And that's how I'm able to get the pictures that I get. So going back to your question about Putin, you know, that picture is probably one of my most famous pictures, I suppose. It's a picture that I know Putin liked in the end, and a lot of his followers liked because it showed him as a tough nationalist who wants Russia back at the seat of global power in the way that it had the influence of the old days of the Soviet Union. That's my impression. And I think that's why his supporters liked it, because it was uncompromising. He was in the picture, he doesn't seem concerned with being popular. He feels he has a job to do, which is to push Russia onto the table of power again. But the other side, Putin's opponents, most people in the human rights community also loved the picture because it gave them a banner that shows everything that they believe is wrong with power and authority with Russia. And I've seen thousands of people in demonstrations holding up my picture as a banner, photoshopping, horns onto his head, the LGBTQ community photoshopping rouge and the rainbow moustache on him, or whatever it is. Now, Pussy Riot, who I've got to know over the years, they came and I photographed them in my studio. And Nadia Tolokonikova, she's a friend of mine. She's the founder of Pussy Riot. I mean, they used my picture in their demonstrations. You know, they've set fire to it and waved it, burnt it as it flies down from a rooftop. So all these things are happening, so much so that Putin's administration, not that long ago, issued a decree that anyone who is now caught circulating my picture in connection with human rights will go to jail. And that picture has been labeled extremist material. Now, it's the same picture.
So it changed dramatically.
And he likes it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't like it being used against him. So the reason why both sides find a story in that picture is because it was a true moment. And I was being honest. And there is a glint in his eye. There is a little bit of quiet charisma in there. And I was able to have him look directly into the camera. And I think it's the only picture that he's ever done like that. I don't think there's another. A few people have maybe photographed him, but he never sits down, willingly communicates and interacts with the photographer on an equal level. And he trusted me, and it's my duty to photography to be honest about that moment. And something that people get wrong all the time is to confuse art with promotion. Just because I'm photographing someone does not mean I'm promoting them one way or the other. I'm not promoting anyone. I'm not trying to sell you anyone, even if it's George Clooney or Barack Obama. I'm not trying to sell anybody. I'm just trying to say, this is the experience I had with these people. And it was an authentic moment. But it's only a moment. It's actually, for our photography fanatics or nerds tuning in, it's 1/500th of a second. So how can 1/500th of a second sum up someone's life? It's absolutely impossible. But there's a magical ingredient, which is truth. And truth is eternal.
Yeah.
And if you have a true 1/500th of a second, it can outlast your entire life. It can outlast all our lives, because it's a moment that is something we all see ourselves in, for better or worse. So that's what I strive for. It's a true moment with someone. And some of the most powerful moments I've had are not with famous people. They're with people who have been robbed of all power, who have been forgotten by society. And when they sit for me, I have this apple box. It's like a white apple box covered in scratches and dents now over the years. Everyone sits on that box. Apparently, I've been told more world leaders have sat on that box than any chair in history. And yet it's only a box. Most of Hollywood sat on that box. Harvey Weinstein sat on that box. P. Diddy sat on that box. Gaddafi sat on that box. Ahmadinejad, Mugabe. But also, more importantly, all the human rights defenders I've had the great privilege to work with over the years have all sat on that box. Now, some people who sit on it, and I'm not judging, they might feel a bit intimidated or nervous, partly because of my archive now, and they know who else has sat on it in the past, but partly because they know that I'm searching for truth, not to catch anyone out, but to share a true moment with them. And if someone's success overtakes their life, it becomes a brand. And the brand starts to separate from the truth. And when you're in a true place, a chapel of truth, that separation creates anxiety. And a lot of famous people have ended up in this trap, that they can't really say what they really want to say anymore, because it might damage the brand. But when you go to the other extreme and you photograph someone who's had all power and freedom taken away from them in the past, who've been hurt by society, they sit on the box. And the box to them means a voice, amplification. Finally, their story is going to be told. And they're the ones that are telling it, not someone else. They get to sit on the box and have their voice amplified, even visually through my picture. That's really exciting, and that's the great privilege.
We are a photographer podcast, so I know you don't like to speak very much about technical stuff, but nonetheless, I want to ask a question, because it's for me also very personal, because I like to photographing with film still. And you've stayed very loyal to film photography in an age when almost everything goes digital. What does shooting with film on film give you that digital can't? And does it change the way you connect with the person in front of the camera?
Well, with technology, we always think that it's freeing us and liberating us. But if we're going to talk about photography technique, I'll do it for just 2 minutes and then we'll move on. Here's why I prefer film. It's not just because film looks better. Because digital is improving all the time. So it looks incredible. There's more information on a digital file than you can get on film now. So, but here's the problem. With film, if I'm shooting on a medium format camera, I shoot on Hasselblad. Okay, I've got a roll of film in there. That's 12 frames. Okay, now if I'm in a really high pressured situation, I'm either photographing Putin, as we said, or Donald Trump, or I am in a revolution and we're in Tahrir Square when it's going off. I've got 12 frames. Now, okay, frame number 1, I'm just finding my feet. Frame number 6, I'm starting to really get to something important. By frame 10, I now know that it's coming to an end. And I've got 3 frames, 10, 11, 12. 12 is the last frame before I have to take the back off my camera, change backs, put another one on. While all that's happening, it's over. I've lost that complete direct connection with my subject. There's body movements, someone handing me another back, or I'm grabbing something. And for even if it's 2 seconds, and we're like a pit stop at Ferrari, even in 2 seconds, I'm losing something. Any Formula One driver will tell you it's like the pit stop is like changing your roll of film. But the pit stop is necessary because you've got to put new tires on. And if you don't pit stop, you might carry on and think that you're winning the race. But eventually you're going to burn out and the wheels are going to come off. It's the same with digital. There's no break, so there's no discipline. And the discipline is what helps me. When I get to frame 10 and I've got someone in front of me, I have a conversation with myself and I say, all right, we've got 3 moments left, not 3 frames. The frames are nothing. It's the moments that count. And I know 10, 11, 12. And then that's it. It's over. And if you're with Donald Trump and you've got 2 moments left, make it count. It has to count. It has to be history. Now, I don't just say that to myself. I will say it to my subjects. We've got 3 frames left, Donald. Don't fuck it up. Let's do this. Let's do it.
Very cool.
And then the last frame, that's it.
No.
History, push it. Push your talent. Push your powers of observation. Push your subject to feel this moment in history and commit to the picture with me. And it's not for me, as I said, to judge whether one way or another this is a good person or a bad person. It will be their legacy that will inform it. When I worked with Harvey Weinstein and with P. Diddy, with the Weinsteins, at the time, my picture represented bad boy Hollywood swagger. Same with Diddy. His record label was even called Bad Boy Records. It was in plain sight. Now the same picture represents absolute monsters who abused their power in the media. But it's the same picture. And if you look in their eyes, you can kind of see it was always there.
Very powerful. Thank you so much. So, we're coming to an end. But
we can go a bit long.
One last question. Just a short one.
Go on. Do what you want.
Looking back at your still very active career, what would you most like to pass on the younger photographers today? Because this is our future in photography. What would you pass to them as a tip or as an inspiration?
That's a good question. Well, I'm actually in Olten because of the younger generation, because we need to encourage them to step forward. To be a photographer is a very, very important job. It's not about photographing famous people. Some of the most important pictures in history were not of famous people. They were of ordinary people who were doing extraordinary things. And sometimes those pictures even can shape history. You think of really what helped change America's idea of its own war with Vietnam. You could say photography played a huge role in that. So I'm here to encourage the next generation of photographers. You know, we're going through a massive shift in industry and how society works with technology. The internet kind of destroyed the old magazines as we know them. And now with AI, we're about to go through another revolution. So I understand that there's a lot of insecurity and uncertainty, especially with young photographers. But there's something magical about being a photographer. It's a responsibility and it's a badge of honor. And it takes a lot of dedication and commitment and courage to be a proper photographer. You have to master your craft so that you can be free from it. So that's goal number one. But then when you've done that, you've got to say to yourself, what am I going to do with this Ferrari? Where am I going to drive with this Porsche? I might have the coolest car and the fastest car, but a car is not important. It's where it takes you that's important. And photography can take you to extraordinary experiences. So you will face so much rejection and loneliness. And if you're doing it hoping that you're going to get validated, then you'll quit very quickly. Because there's not enough validation and reward if that's what you're doing it for. But if you're doing it for the picture, for the moment, for the chance to say, I experienced the front line of history, and if you thought it was happening over there, I've corrected history by reminding everyone that it's not over there where it's happening, it's over here. And photographers can do that. So a message to the young generation, anyone who's tuning in now feeling a little lonely, lacking in confidence, not sure if they're good enough, unsure of what the system even is to navigate, then I will say to you, roll up your sleeves, folks. You're needed. They won't tell you you're needed because the system actually doesn't want you. The system, the last thing they want is little champions of truth wandering around with a bloody camera. That's the last thing they want. And especially in the time of AI, never before in history has truth been more important and trust been more important and integrity been more important and the value of humanity and human connection and human relationships. And we are going to really need a new generation of photographers who are willing to be those people to remind us of how beautiful and how fragile and how valuable humanity really is. So I say, you're needed. Roll up your bloody sleeves, folks. Get to work. It's hard, but it's the best, most privileged, beautiful life you could ever imagine. It's a life in the front line of history. And the things I've experienced and the people I've met, I've lived 200 lives in one life. So it wasn't me that got me there. It was photography that got me there.
Platon, thank you so much for your time, for the opportunity to talk with you, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And especially see you tonight with your keynote speech.
Yeah, tonight I'm going to shake things up, so you better get ready. Anyone who wants to come tonight, it's going to be a night they'll never forget.
Thank you so much.
Great pleasure. You did good.
Thank you.